Again. Hello and welcome to Fire in the Belly. Today we have myself, Mighty Pete, and we're joined by Elizabeth Pampalone. Good afternoon. Or good morning, I should
Hey,
say.
how are you doing?
What timeline are you guys on? I'm confused now.
It's Eastern time, so yeah, it's afternoon for me.
That's okay. I've confused myself. We're in the evening time, so different time zones. Great. Tell us, Elizabeth, who are you and what do you do?
Well, I am an expert marketer and international speaker, and I help clients with their websites, their marketing, and try and help them just streamline everything so they don't get overwhelmed.
Hmm. You've said that before. You're very smooth. I like it. And I'm sure you're highly in demand. It's busy times.
Yes, yeah, it's been a very interesting time. It reminds me a lot of when we had the recession here in the US a few years ago, and it's very much like that, except that happened over about a 4 to 5 year period. This happened in over a 3 month period, so it's a little accelerated.
Yeah, because I think businesses have probably gone from I don't know what to do through to reinventing themselves, and then some start seeing it as an opportunity, right? So it's all change.
Absolutely, yeah.
It's cool. So tell us, what does fire in the belly mean to you, Elizabeth?
Well, I've always heard that phrase, since I was a kid, and I really took it to mean that you have this drive and this passion to complete something, and there's really not much that's going to stop you. It's this tenacity and this ability to keep adapting and keep overcoming anything that gets thrown in your way, and that's always what it's really meant to me.
Is that something you have?
I think so. I think so. I've really tried to hone that skill. It's sometimes really difficult at times. You feel like giving up, but for some reason, I just keep getting back up, keep going, and to the chagrin of some people I know, but also to the applause of other people that I know. So I think it really does. It is a personal thing, and it definitely a personal choice because there's people that I've known in my career and in business that they haven't had that necessarily. It hasn't, the things that they've been working on haven't meant as much to them for them to say, I'm going to give this everything no matter what. They say, I'm going to give this everything. But if it gets too hard, I might not finish it. And so that's where I feel like I've really, have this difference in me that I've been able to go through that and go through those trials and continue on. Whereas my colleagues, like I said, they may not have had that same fire, that same passion for whatever it is that they were doing, and they've left those things behind to pursue other interests, which is good because if you don't have that fire about that one thing you're doing, it's kind of pointless to keep going because you're never going to be able to complete it to that nth degree where you're going to get all the way to the end, all the way to the finish line. You're going to stop somewhere in the middle anyway. So you might as well know that ahead of time and get out of Dodge and go to do something else.
I like it. I mean, that explains it perfectly. So because a lot of people say, "Yeah, I've got fire in my belly," and like until this happens, and then it's like, nah. It's like you either do, you don't, and it's kind of that with a dog with a bone, or just someone that's just relentless, and you're going, "Do you ever stop, or you give up on that idea?" But that's a really nice summary. I like that. So what would that be for you in terms of, I suppose, personally and professionally?
Well, I've always been in love with marketing. My mom owned several businesses when I was a child, and I loved that people would come to our house and buy things from, things she handmade or things that she was selling at the time, and she would teach classes. And I kind of took all that stuff that I learned as a kid and then I osmosized it and didn't realize it. And then as I grew up and I had my own business, I basically started doing a lot of the things that she did and not realizing it. And then she would say to me, "Oh, I used to do that for this, and I used to do this for that." And I was like, "What? Wait, I thought that was my idea." And so I've always loved that idea of selling to people and not letting them think that you're selling to them, and have this mystique about it that says, you know, I'm going to sell you something, you're going to need it, you're going to want it, even though when you walk in the door, you might not think that. And you might not have that idea in your head, but we're going to work through that together. And we're going to get you to that point where you say, oh my gosh, I do need this. Oh yes, I do want that. And, and I've always loved the thing about selling without selling, or speaking is selling, those kinds of phrases. And I like to see people get what they need, not what they think they want. I've worked with a lot of nonprofits, and a lot of them think, "Oh, I need a grant. I need to get a grant because it's going to make me money. Give me all the money." But really, what they need is marketing. And so helping them realize that that may not be the right piece that they need or they think they need it, and let's get you what you actually need and what's actually going to move you forward and actually going to make a difference in what you're doing. So I like seeing that transformation, and even from that young age, and seeing people achieve something that they didn't think was possible, that they didn't think about, that they didn't have. Because I feel like there's some people that have creative minds and they can go so many steps further than other people can, and it's not like a better or worse thing, it's just a different thing. And some people are so great about focusing on the now, and they're like so detail oriented on the now, but they can't see those 5 steps ahead. And then there's other people that can see those 5 steps ahead, and so that's really where I like to come in, and I feel like I can see those 5 steps, but then maybe I'm not as good at seeing all the details right this second. So so putting those two kinds of people together really allows you to get a full picture of what people need and what they want. And I like seeing that come together as well, so that when I work with a client or I leave someone, with a product or a service, it's like they've gotten everything out of it that they needed right that moment. And they are also prepared for the future.
Well, and do you tend to work specifically in one particular sector, or do you specialize?
I like to work with small businesses and nonprofits, but I really have done a lot more with small businesses, and I find that people that have been in business for a while, that maybe have lost a little bit of that fire, that maybe have gotten stuck and don't know what to do next or don't know how to move forward, those are my favorite, because like I said, I have that brain that can see those 5 steps ahead into the future, and I can see all the avenues that they could take. It's kind of like the Marvel folklore with Doctor Strange. He can see all the possibilities, and everyone's sitting there going, okay, do we make it or do we not make it? And he's like, there's one possibility where we make it out of the 5 million options. And so I feel like I have a little bit of that I can help someone see that. But it's always the person that's from the outside. Now, for myself, I can't do that. I need a coach or someone else to help me do that. Because when you're right there in it and you're stuck and your brain is telling you, I can't figure this out, I don't understand it, then you just need someone else to come in and look at it from the outside and go, that's not such a hard problem. Look, here's the 2 pieces. You just put them together and the puzzle's finished. And so so that's really what I like to do. But I like to find those people that are stuck, because I know that that I have that ability to get them a little bit unstuck just for now, and then they can move forward. And a lot of times the people that do get stuck and they just sit there stuck and they don't know what else to do, they're the ones who actually have that fire. They're still stuck because they're still sitting there trying to figure it out. The ones that get stuck and give up, they're the ones that I feel like don't have that, and they need to move on to something else. But that's why I like the ones that get stuck, because they stay there for a minute and they're like, no, I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to make it work. And I like to work with them the best.
Oh, wow, I love it, and love the energy you're bringing into that. So, and do you tend to, is it all direct with clients, or do you work remotely, or how does that work?
Yeah, I work with them both. I do in-person sessions with people. I do speaking engagements, workshops, and I also do remote sessions if need be. So we have someone working with in California next week, and it's going to be a remote session, obviously. But then I have people locally. I've traveled to other states to, to work with people. People have traveled to come and work with me from other states and other countries. But I also have some online stuff that's more hands off. Like, hey, here's all the formulas. You're a go-getter. Go get it, use what we've built and use it for your own purposes. So I do a mix of everything. And I think that COVID has really shown that type of strategy is really needed for a lot of industries. And so now we're trying to help people to adapt in that way, as well as we've already adapted it in our business.
I don't know if you guys are the same, and I think here in the UK and Ireland, there's a term pivot has come into play, and I don't know if you guys have used it, and I think everyone's kind of sick to the back teeth of it, but so, yeah, I don't know if sort of terms like that, but that's the where businesses are at right now. Is that,
It really is. And I find that this is the best type of opportunity. I kind of, it's kind of sad to use these terms and say that I'm kind of glad that this happened in a way. It's kind of like I need to find the silver lining. So it's like, okay, what is the silver lining of COVID? Well, a lot of businesses who were complacent had to figure new things out. They had to struggle to make things work. They had to pivot, as you say. And there's other businesses that were on the edge and they were hanging on by a thread anyway. And it's good that now their owners and their employees and everybody is released from that kind of slow death. It was just like, okay, it's done. Let's move on to something else and find that new thing. So I feel like there's a lot of opportunity here. There's a lot of blessing in disguise here, even though some of this is, seemingly tragic on the business side where you're like, oh, this business is closed and that one's, closed down and these people lost their jobs. But it's almost like a release also. I was talking with someone earlier about when a wildfire comes through and it's like scorched earth and everything burns. But then when you go back a month or 2 months later, there's all that new green growth right in the middle of all the black scorched, trees and grass and everything. And it does come back stronger and it comes back more lush and better and just more habitable than it even was before in some cases. And so that's what I really see is happening here. And like I said, I try to find that silver lining, and I don't think that COVID is like a good thing. I'm not saying that, but I am saying that there can be opportunity and there can be growth from this, and we have to see it that way. Otherwise, we'll just be down in the dumps forever.
It's true. And I mean, I was chatting to someone the other day and saying it's actually as big, if not bigger, than the sort of internet revolution. I mean, but the internet revolution almost happened over 15 odd years, maybe longer. And yet this has happened, as you say, over 3-4 months now. It's crazy. I mean, that, as you say, businesses that were just hanging on, well, they're gone. There's businesses that are, as you say, they're stuck and they just don't quite know what to do. And they're sort of having to re-engineer. And other businesses are just taking off and they're going crazy, right? So there's, it's a very interesting time. And I suspect a lot of people will look back at this and do studies and, how things have changed. Overall for
Yeah.
business, how has it been for you? Is it, what's your take on it personally and professionally?
Yeah, it's been okay. We've definitely had to adjust some things, not as much as others because we already had sort of a mixed strategy going into it. But we definitely had to make some adjustments. And I definitely feel like going through we were in business during the recession here in the US in 09 and 07 through really like 16. We were in that whole time period. And so during that whole like decline, bottoming out, and then climbing out of it, that reminds me a lot of this. But again, it's that 5-6 year span to like 3 months. It's all just condensed. And I find that a lot of the things that helped us then are helping us now, which is, consistently networking, consistently showing up, being more intentional with certain marketing pieces, things like that. And that's what we're trying to help our clients with. And we've been touting those anecdotes, I guess, or those rules really for years. But when it comes to something like this, people actually start listening. And so I find that that's really helpful that now people are actually listening for this stuff. And these are some of the buzzwords: branding, websites, social media, email marketing, blogging, all those buzzwords are now being listened for. Then we are able to come in and actually educate in a more meaningful way rather than just saying, hey, you need to work on your website. Hey, you need to work on your branding. And it kind of falling on deaf ears in some cases. So I'm glad that at least it's kind of gotten a little bit of show time, if you will. In our business, we signed the biggest contract of our business, my biggest contract of my career for sure in April. So right in the middle of everything. So I don't feel like, and like we talked about, like there's businesses that were hanging on, there's businesses that were stuck, and there's businesses that were thriving. So I feel like we're somewhere in between stuck and thriving. We're not like going crazy, but we're not like stuck either. So we're kind of still just keeping going. And I feel like a lot of those businesses are the ones that are keeping the economies of the world going. We just keep pushing forward. We just keep moving on. We pivot when we need to, and we don't really stop. And I told people this from day one, like as soon as the lockdowns happened, as soon as, people were, kind of freaking out a little bit in the early days, I was like, you know what, if you stop, you die. That's what's going to happen. If you stop doing what you're doing, if you stop pushing your marketing. And a lot of people were saying it was insensitive to market in the early days of this, and you shouldn't be selling to people. That's not necessary. That's not a good thing. And I said, why? There are still businesses that have to run. even if they're working from home, even if they're, there's companies that are now that were selling mattresses and pillows and now they're selling masks. They still have to market that. They still have to sell those things. So, I felt like my whole message from the beginning was, if you stop, you die. So don't stop. We have to keep going, and really getting people on board of this open we stand thing, that we're still going to keep going as much as we can from wherever we are. And I feel like that's really been something that's been happening over the last 10 year or 15 years, is this gig economy, this work from anywhere, this, work from home, live in Bali and work from, New York or whatever. But it just was so accelerated. And I think it kind of like when those centrifugal force rides go and everybody's like pushed against the wall, it's like some people might have fallen off a little bit along the way, but the rest of us who hung on, like we're going to be okay. And then the ride will stop soon.
I mean, the whole economy, as you say, the whole economy is too big to fail. I think at first it was like doomsday, and it's like something that, like one of the Die Hard films where the whole world's going to get obliterated. It's like, but I think whenever the initial panic just settled a little, then you realize, business has to go on, core infrastructure has to keep going, and then those workers need to be supported, and slowly it's coming back in. But yeah, certainly the sensitivity of marketing, it's, I think if you were too obvious, or as you say, seem to cash in, then yeah, it's going to backfire. But as you say, there's still stuff to be done. So
Right. And it wasn't about being crass. It was about just keep going. Like don't go crazy with it, but just keep your head down and like go forward. Cause it's also kind of like when you get stuck in snow or ice or, sand or something like that with a car, and you have to just keep moving. If you stop, you will start sinking. And then you won't get out.
oh yeah, totally. And that's it is moving forward. Tell me this: is a website ever finished?
I believe it's like a living document. I do think it does become finished. I think you can complete a website.
Hmm.
We do that in one day here, but if there's always updates, there's always maintenance that needs to be done. And I think as clients see that, oh, I'm getting the same question like all the time, these people are asking me the same thing over and over and over, then it's like, okay, what's not on our website? What are we not saying there that we're getting the same question all the time? We had this with our I own two companies, and one of them is a trivia company. We play online trivia games with people from all over. And instead of going to the pub and having trivia, you can now do it from your living room with a bunch of people from all over the country, all over the world. And we get this same question every single time. It's like we're not getting across this one piece of information. So every game I have to answer the same question at least 4 times out of a group of like 30 or 60 people. And I'm thinking, what am I not saying on the website that I need to be communicating before they get to me in a game? And so we've been working on that, and we've actually seen the questions go down, which is great. So I always feel like there's something that can always be added or tweaked or adjusted, but it's definitely for sure that you can complete a full website and then say, okay, let's use it and see if it's going to work. See if it's doing what we need it to do. See if it's serving us, because it's supposed to serve you. It's not supposed to just sit there. And once it's serving you, okay, now how can it serve me better? Can I add a page that does X? Can I have a thing on my homepage that has a little link to such and such, so then it's utilized from a business standpoint, where I had a client call me today, and she was saying that she does a referral program for people, and she wants them to send her leads, and then she pays them if the person cashes in. And the thing about that was she didn't have a website. So I said, well, how are you getting the referrals? How do you know who's sending you what and all this stuff? And she said, oh, well, I just have to discuss it with them first. And then I have to tell them what the process is like. And then I have to send them an email so then they can send me email leads. And I said, what if you just had a web page on your website that was just explaining everything, what the percentage was at the time, which you can always change, and then had a form that they could just go to, bookmark, and fill out every time they had a lead, especially people that bring a lot. And she was like, oh, I never thought of that. So it was something that she was like, yeah, I got a website. It's just kind of sitting there, not really doing anything. And I said, it should be working for you. And so that's why I really think websites are important, because I feel like they should be kind of your 24-hour salesman.
It's very true. I mean, that's the beauty of it. Nowadays we have websites that are, frankly, cheaper than staff. They work 24/7, 365. They do pretty much what you tell them to do. And
Yeah.
it's a consistent message every time. It's not, they don't have a bad day or have a dentist appointment or go home at weekends or evenings, So it's an amazing evolution, and that's getting quicker and faster and smarter, right? It's just every day it's different link ups and add-ons, and you can track and all the rest now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like that, there are five pieces of marketing that really need to be put together to make a whole strategy. And a lot of people say, well, I just do social media, that's enough. And it really isn't a strategy. It's a part of marketing. And so when I developed absolute marketing, it was because I saw a lot of people taking that approach. They were, going too far with just one piece and then saying, well, why isn't my marketing working? So absolute marketing, when I developed that a few years ago, I really sat down and looked at what are the five main pieces and how can we help people create those in this most succinct amount of time. And the five pieces are branding, which is your foundation. If you don't have a good brand, what else is everything going to be built on? How are you going to know what your colors are? How are you going to know what your fonts are? How are you going to know what your voice is, who you're speaking to, what you do? All of that stuff is in your brand. And if you can answer three questions, who are you? Why are you doing this? What do you do? And who is it for? Then that's a brand. And then you can make the visual stuff to go with it. And then your website is the representation of that brand. It's like you said, that 24-hour person. It's the one that all the information is consistent. It's always there. It's always the same. And if it's midnight and I'm doing laundry and waiting for the clothes to be done, and I can go on the website and write you a message and say, hey, let's talk about this. Let's work together, rather than me trying to say, oh, I gotta call him tomorrow, and I might not have time between going to work, and oh, but he's not available after 5, and all these things. So it's just like I can just send you a message at midnight and you're gonna get it, and we'll talk. We'll make something happen there. So that's another foundational piece. And then you have your social media, which is a necessary evil, I like to call it. And that's something that can be done evergreen. It can be done ahead of time. We do 12 months in one day, because why should you sit there and deal with it every single day, every single week, every single month, when there's a ton of stuff you tell people all day long that's the same, and you can just put all that out there in a scheduled format. And then the same thing with blogs. Let's get that going. Let's get your SEO up on your website, and let's schedule those out for 12 months. Again, more evergreen, more education that you're going to tell people from now until the end of time, because it's going to pretty much be the same. And then the final piece is email marketing, because email is not dead, no matter what anyone says. If you think about one of the first things you did this morning, it was probably check your email, and probably more than one inbox. And so we utilize that as our final piece to kind of collapse everything together and remind people, hey, go check out the new blog, or hey, we added this to our website, or those kind of things. So that's what I think is the most helpful for people when they're looking at marketing as a whole, because the website's just one piece of that. Social media is just one piece of that. And if you can use all five of those pieces together, it's really, really powerful. And then you can have people say about you what they say about me is, man, that girl is everywhere. I need to work with her.
It's so true. Like, and that's, you can be strong in certain areas, and as you say, it just why isn't it working, or vice versa. It's never been so easy, and you might contradict me here, but it's never been so easy to be in so many places or be so visible,
Yeah.
if that's the right way to put it, and without having to get sort of RSI in your thumbs, that you're sort of liking, posting, sending, consistently at a similar time, and blah blah blah. So yes, I mean, all the tools and software, I mean, it's a changing landscape daily, I'm sure.
Yeah, and I like to talk to people about realistic marketing. I mean, there's so much you could do. There's so much you can do. Like you said, it's so easy to be out there. And I just like to look at it in a realistic state, so that if you can do these five pieces and you can do each of them well, not so well that you're spending millions of dollars on all this stuff, but you need to do them well and efficiently and consistently. That's the other piece, consistently, which is why we do a whole year in one day for each of those pieces. But if you can do those five pieces well and consistently, that's all you need. You don't have to be a guru. You don't have to do ads. You don't have to have first page on Google. I mean, those things are good and they might happen. They might be helpful to you, but really these 5 things are that's why I call it absolute marketing, because when I really sat down and thought about it, what actually was successful for people, what actually was the most important that actually worked, because you could talk about ads and SEO and stuff like that all day long, but sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes you have to take 3-6 months of trial and error, but this works when you use it, if it's consistent. If it's not consistent, that's when you see the pitfalls and you see it not working.
I love it. I love the energy you give into this. So take us right back. Who are you? Where do you come from? Talk to us about your family and your upbringing.
Well, I am the oldest of 5, and I was homeschooled from the age of kindergarten through 12th grade. And that was interesting. I thought it was fun. I thought it was amazing. And I got to do so many things that none of my other friends who went to school got to do. And my parents, we had garden when I was growing up, and we lived in, just the suburbs of Ohio, so it wasn't anything fancy or anything like that, but it was good. And we got to, like I said, we got to do so many things. I remember going to a radio station when I was 13, and I did a radio show because I kept calling the radio station, telling them what songs I wanted them to play. And they were so enamored with this 13-year-old redheaded child who was calling them every 5 minutes saying, you should play this, you should play this, that they had me on, and they let us, me and my sister, pick music and do the radio weather and do a live broadcast with them at the age of 13. And I got to write for the newspaper. We had sent in some articles with our little troop we were in, and they thought we were awesome and they thought we were super cute. And so they put us on as junior reporters. And one of the things I remember that happened, that they had this museum that they were like at odds with. The newspaper had written some not so nice things about the museum, and the museum didn't like that. And so they wouldn't let any reporters come from that newspaper to any of the museum events. And we're talking like a major city museum. This is not a little museum in a small town. I mean, we're talking like Cincinnati, metropolitan area, massive museum, major national headlines, and this newspaper was not allowed to be there at all. So they said, you know what, there's this press event. We're going to send these 2 little redheaded children with their parents to this press event and see if we can like sneak them in, basically, because we're not allowed to be there. They were like, fine, we'll let the redheads in. We'll let the children in because they're children. And we basically got to go backstage, see all the things, up front, up close. And then the museum was like, we like you. You can come back, but nobody else is allowed to come back. And so we did new reports for them for, oh gosh, like 2 or 3 years. And we just kept writing articles and working for them. And it was not paid. It was all free labor because we were kids, but we got to do cool things. We got to meet the Blue Angels because of that. We got to influence how the Children's Museum was constructed and what was in it, because we got a backstage tour before it was released to the public, and we said, we need to fix that, and that's not kid friendly, and and we were the experts because we were kids. And so those kind of things, I remember doing that kind of stuff growing up, and I tell people about that, now, like, oh yeah, I worked at a radio station when I was a kid, and I was a newspaper reporter when I was a kid, and people are like, what? So I think that growing up and being homeschooled was pretty neat, and I hope to do that one day for my kids.
Why homeschooling?
What?
Why homeschooling?
Well, my parents wanted to try it. They tried it in kindergarten. They said, well, we just want to see how it goes. This was 1990, I guess. They said, we'll just see. And then if it's, if it's okay, we'll keep going. But if not, we'll just find a good school and send them, And my mom tried it, and she's like, well, kindergarten wasn't that hard. I can do kindergarten. And then I got to first grade, and she's like, well, I mean, first grade's not that much harder than kindergarten. And she kept saying that until like high school. And she was like, okay, well, now I've got 4 other kids, behind her. We're kind of in all different stages, all different grades. She was one-room schoolhousing it. And she was like, well, I guess I have to keep going. There's not really much else I can do except keep going. So she learned more stuff. We even did the whole get the fetal pig, right? Like when you dissect a pig in school or dissect something. she went online and she bought that, and we did that in our garage. I mean, it was like she was committed. And my parents did it for somewhat religious reasons, somewhat protection reasons, because also during that time, when I was entering high school, like Columbine was a thing and school shootings were on the rise, and they were like, no, we really don't want to kind of, we sheltered you so far. We don't want to just shove you out there and be like, okay, go to school. So they kind of just kept going with it. And about 2 years ago, my youngest sister, she's now 20. She finally was the last one to be graduated. So my mom was homeschooling for, oh my gosh, I guess like almost 30 years, I guess 25 years. So
Wow, that's phenomenal. I mean, that's dedication.
yes, she had a fire in her belly for that, for sure.
Yeah, I love my kids, but yeah, back to school. It's like,
Yeah, it's not for everybody. And I think that's the same thing with entrepreneurship. Like, it's definitely not for everybody. And that's okay. Like, it's not supposed to be. But when that one person finds something that they're really passionate about, and that was, my mom and our education, like she just went for it. And that was pretty cool for me to grow up that way.
very much so. I mean, what was your mother's background?
She just had a degree from a Bible college, and, just wasn't, she had done some nursing school, a little bit of that. She really didn't have a huge education background, but she took the challenge on and she did it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, like I say, fair play to your mother for doing that. That's it's well, yeah, I couldn't, and I sit here, I'm speechless almost that for that duration of time, even just to do it, as you say, do it through kindergarten and then yeah, go back in or whatever. But it's no, it's pretty special. You mentioned there religion is pretty strong for you guys. Is it bit in your background?
Yeah, my family's Christian. That's how I grew up, and I still, am a Christian, and I believe in those principles. And when I met my husband, my second husband, he was also a Christian, so that was important for me. And most of my siblings have also, kept to those principles as well. So it's been a very good, solid family unit as far as that's concerned, which has been good, because when you come through times like this as well, it's like things can get fractured, and you can kind of lose touch with people, even family members. And so it's been good that we've all been able to stay together and have some of those same things in common, even though we've grown and gotten other interests along the way.
Hmm. And spirituality, do you go there, or is it mainly on the religious side?
Yeah, so I believe that being a Christian involves a lot of different pieces. And I think that religion is more of a ritual, it's more about being ritualistic. And when it comes to Christianity, I believe it's more of a lifestyle. It's something you embody every day. And it's something that you are not necessarily afraid to talk about. I remember when I was writing for a blog in early days of my web on my business, and they said, well, if you're going to write for us, it was a Christian blog. They said you have to put a faith statement on your website. And at the time, I mean, I was a computer repair person. This was my first business, and I did computer repair in people's homes, and it wasn't a Christian business. Like, I didn't market it that way. I was a Christian, but I didn't market it. Say, I'm a Christian business, because sometimes people put that on their, sign out the front, like, okay, come to us, we're Christians. And I wasn't using that as a marketing tool. I just was a Christian. And so I was a little hesitant to put that on my website, because I thought, what are people going to say? And are they going to see me differently now if they, if I don't tell them and then they see this? And then I got to thinking about it. I was like, well, if they're offended by that, we're probably not the right fit to work together anyway. And it is part of me, and I probably will talk about it at some point. So I just put it up there. So I put it up. I wrote for the blog. Years go by, and I start getting calls from people saying, I want to work with you because of your faith statement. And I was like, wait, what are you talking about? And then they're like, the faith statement on your website. And I was like, oh yeah, because I forgot all about it. It was just there. I didn't even think about it. And to this day, I still keep it on there, even though it was kind of a forced thing just so I could write for this one blog. But I keep it on there, and I've gotten so many people that have come to me and found kindred spirits, if you will, of people who are Christians or who are wanting to work with someone with that background. because they saw that. And so I now actually talk about that in some of my classes and some of my workshops about how to write a faith statement and why you should put that on there, and helping people walk through, is it right for them to put on their site or not? And so, like I said, it's more of a lifestyle for me rather than being like a religion and being ritualistic. I go to church and I have, Bible study time, and I'm in a Bible study and all those kind of things. I believe that some of those things are important to keep you going because, accountability is important. But at the same time, it's not a ritual for me that if I don't go to church, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm going to hell. So I feel like it's more of a lifestyle that you have to live every day.
I liked your analogy there about religion. As you say, it's a structure. It's almost, and I suppose I couldn't help but link it back to almost from a branding point of view. It's like that is the brand, but
Yeah.
what happens, it's not, what happens underneath is, there's so many, it's made up of so many parts, but, being a Christian it is the main logo, it's the main brand, but
Right.
takes it on. Listen, I mean, it's great. And as you say, I'm intrigued from a marketing point of view that's now part of it, but why not? It's, we all have specific customers, and if that's yours, then great. Why not? Makes sense.
I've even told people that if they have a bent towards, like if they swear a lot, I don't, but if they do, I tell them don't feel afraid to put that on there. If that's going to be your clientele, because they're going to find that out quickly. They're going to know pretty quickly if you do or not, if that's just part of your everyday language. Don't be afraid to show what you are, who you are every day, because that's what people do, is they buy from someone that they know and they like. And if they don't know you really, then they might feel a little gypped later on.
I think, and it's great, and even just to liken it back to what you were saying about fire in the belly, it's like if it's not your true and genuine thing, and that's why, almost for me, why the interviews are so long as well. It's like, I mean, it's long, it's not long. I mean, depending on your perception of time, but I think you can't. We're going to get to the bottom of this. It's like, what's your passion? And you can see it in the language, you can see it in the energy, you can see it in that. And obviously for energy, and sorry, for marketing, for yourself, and even Christianity, you can see a big smile on your face and the energy levels there. So it's great, and that's what I like. So yeah, why not stick to your principles? And as you say, if you can only carry a fake statement for so long,
Yeah.
I think, before you're going to let it go, or drop the towel. So, but tell me, I mean, 7-year-old Elizabeth, who would we meet?
Someone who is very outgoing. So the same. I'm the same. I've kept that, thankfully. And I would make friends with anybody, like anybody. I would pull people off the street. And most of my friends at the time, because I was homeschooled, and we had some like groups of people, that we would play with that were our age and everything. But most of my friends at the time were the old people in my neighborhood, because they would walk and I would be outside, me and my sisters and my brother, and we would just talk with them. I remember standing on the sidewalk in the sun, most weekdays during like lunchtime period, and talking with the old people about everything they could possibly imagine. And they loved it, because they, who is this precocious 7-year-old redheaded child telling me about things that only I would probably know about as a 60-year-old person. I would talk about old movies and old radio shows and historical things. And it's just, that's what I was interested in. And I thought, well, none of my, 10, 11, 12-year-old friends know any of this stuff. All these old people, to me, old people know it. And I might as well just talk to them about it. So that's how I was during those years.
That's amazing, yeah, and it's great, as you say, from the homeschooling, when you take that structure away. Am I right in saying, I mean, well, is there, there's no cost benefit from, financially, there's no extra support for homeschooling or anything like that. It's just, if you choose to do it, that's it.
Yeah, it does cost. I mean, you do have a cost that you're actually adding, because you're paying for the books, you're paying for the curriculum, you're doing the time, you're investing a lot of time. Most of it's time investment. And there's no, when we pay taxes for schools here in the US, and there's no discounts. Sometimes you even have to pay an extra tax or an extra penalty that you have to pay every year, as like hey, we're homeschooling our kids. Here's our $500 or our $200 or whatever it is. So, yeah, it's a little a little cost prohibitive, it can be, but I feel like in the end, for some people, it does make a lot of sense, especially from that, you know, not controlling the education, but being more involved in it. Whereas when you send, you know, here, when we send kids to like the public schools, there's really not a lot of parent involvement. And that's just the way it is here, like where I live. But when you're homeschooling, you have the opportunity to say, okay, well, you were invited to go speak on a radio show today, so we're going to skip what we're doing and do it tomorrow instead. And now you can go and do this thing instead of, let me get you out of school and let's write a note and like, you know, kind of this whole thing that has to happen, that might not even be worth it. You know what I mean? In that case. So I really feel like, yes, it can be cost prohibitive, but I feel like in the long term, if the goal is to empower the child to learn on their own and to grow, almost independently in a way, then that's going to be much more beneficial. True.
Cool. Love it. And your dad, what about that?
He is still a civil worker. He is a postman. He goes and walks and drives and delivers the mail. So he's still doing that. And he's 62, I think.
Well,
So yeah.
especially in Florida, that's big heat and
Yeah. He did the Ohio thing for about 20 years, and he's done the Florida thing for about 13 years. So he did the hot cold, and now he's doing just the hot the hot walking. So, but yeah, he's been doing that for a long time, and yeah, he was really good because he's the one who started our garden when I was a kid and stuff like that. So, yeah, but I mean, he was mostly at work, you know, during the day. So we were with our mom most of the time and working on school usually.
so who do you take after?
My mother probably the most. Yeah, people, they've seen pictures of us, and we did a photo shoot together, a mother-daughter photo shoot a couple years ago, and people were like, "Is that your older sister?" And I'm like, "No."
Hmm.
So I'm hoping I get those genes for later on. But yeah, I do take after my mother. There was nothing she couldn't do really. So yeah, my dad's more pessimistic. He's like, "No, that's not gonna work," and my mom will be like, "Yeah, it can work. It can work."
So tell me, did you guys like bypass a lot of the, sort of emotional trauma that comes with schooling and, you know, playing, friends in the, playground falling out and people calling names and all that crack?
We had that at home. We had that with the siblings.
I was going to say siblings could
So
be worse, actually, I'd imagine, if you're not careful.
yeah, yes, I think that we did have that with the siblings. It was obviously familial, so it wasn't as harsh as it could have been with external people who are just, having their own thing to deal with. It was more like, okay, why are you being this way? What's going on with you? And then there would be a whole family intervention, So then it would be like, okay, let's focus on this person and support them. And why is this happening? And why is this behavior coming out now? And but that was kind of more like at home stuff. And we really did bypass the trauma of like being bullied and things like that. And so now I've been bullied online in recent years, because of I'm so online presence and everything. And it's kind of interesting to me to do that, to see that as an adult rather than, because I never really got that as a kid. And so it's a little bit interesting to experience that and be able to deal with it, because I don't really have any skills to deal with it. I mean, over the years I've developed them, but initially I was like, wait, what is this? Why is this happening? It didn't make sense to me because I never really dealt with it as a kid. And I probably did, but I just didn't really pay attention because we weren't around kids like every day, all day long. It was more like, oh, there's a play group over here, or we're having a group session with these kids for this science class or something. And so there was more in and out interactivity rather than like you're with these kids, the same kids every day for like 10 years kind of thing.
Well, and that's, did you guys then, so you mixed with other people or kids at certain times for different things as well?
Yeah, and there was a lot of groups. There was homeschool groups that we would go to, and they would have field trips and stuff like that. So we were probably on a 2 to 4 times a month basis with different kids in different, groups and doing different things, going to symphonies or museums or, going on hay rides or doing apple picking or, whatever the thing was happening at the time. But there wasn't really, and we also had friends that we would, meet up with and they would come over to our house or vice versa. But there was never really this like one group where you would be like, okay, you're with these people for 4 days a week or 2 days a week. It was true homeschooling, where now there's more co-ops and you can send your kids to a science class and an English class and a math class for like 2 or 3 days a week, and then they come home and then they do the work, so it's kind of like hybrid schooling. Whereas we were working at home, everything was done at home, and then only when I went to high school, my mom she picked a few classes that she was like, I'm not going to touch that. I don't know anything about, 11th grade, whatever. And so then she would send us to a few of those co-op things, but that was only much, much later. So during the rest of the time, we were with our old people friends, or we were with our younger friends during like some kind of arranged play date type of our family. So.
And tell me, is there much of a spread in age with you guys and with your siblings?
Yeah, so I'm the oldest, and the youngest is 14 years younger than me.
Well,
so there's 3 in the middle of that.
what are you? I can't even do the math. It's too late at night.
I'm 34.
There you go. So you're roughly about 3 years apart, something like that.
Yeah, so my next sister is 2 years. The next sister is 5 years, so a big gap, and then 3 and 3.
Do you all get on?
Yeah, yeah. My one sister is kind of doing her own thing, like, she spread her wings and she's over there for a little while. So, and my second, the one that's second after her, the third girl, she's kind of starting to do that as well. But everybody pretty much, is cordial, or we have family gatherings. We'll have, Christmas and Thanksgiving and things like that. So that's been good. And we actually just had Father's Day was a couple weeks ago, and we had everybody over and we had a big meal and, honored my dad and gave him some gifts and stuff. So that was fun.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, no, it's great. And especially as you guys spend so much time together as well, so I mean, at that stage, what did you want to be? You're going into radio stations and writing newspapers. What was Elizabeth going to be at the age of sort of 12, 13? What was the world setting out for you?
Well, when I was 14, which is 2000, I went to a class at a library on how to write HTML, and it was a language. And my parents were like, well, you need to learn the language. And I was like, okay, I picked this one. They were like, that's not the kind of language we think. And I said, no, I picked this one. And they said, fine. And I took this free 1-hour nighttime class at a library. It was incredible. I thought, how did I not know about this before? I can sit here, type in some things into a notepad on a computer, and come up with an entire web page. Colors, sounds, graphics moving, pictures, text. I just thought, how can I type in something that's text and then see something that's so visual and so creative? I was fascinated. I was hooked. That was it. I wanted to do that for the rest of my life. That was done. And my parents were like, well, can you make money at that? They didn't want me to be at 14, like so set on this path that, I would hate it, or I wouldn't be able to make any money when I grew up, that kind of thing. And I said, no, I can make money. And so we looked it up, and of course it was, the average was about 60,000. And they were like, okay, I guess that'll work.
.com boom was, I can't remember when it crashed.
It had just started to happen. So yeah, 2000 was kind of that tipping point.
Did you do
that? Yeah, I know, right? It was like, oh, me, a butterfly effect. But yeah, I did fall in love with it. And I said, I want to do this for college. And they said, well, it's a science, right? You hate science. And I was like, yeah, I can make it work. And I went to a 2-year college and got a degree in it. And I thought, I'm just going to go to a company and work in a job and do the thing I like to do and make little websites for people, and it's going to be great. And that's not really how it turned out. But I still love HTML, and I still love websites, obviously.
I love it. And so tell me, what was your first website?
It was for a company that I was an intern with, called TJ's Tech Solutions. And it was the most horrible website ever. Awful. I did some little things on my own, making like 1-page, examples and trying different things and trying different code and all that. But that was my first official job, and it was awful. And I still have screenshots of it today, because I will go back and look at like all of my screenshots of all the websites I've done in my career, which is over, there's several hundred, and I just start from the beginning, and I'm like, oh, that was bad. Well, that was okay. Yeah, that wasn't good. And just look through all of them and see like where I am now. And it's just, I do that probably like once a year, because I like to kind of go back and see how far I've come in that time period.
That's awesome. Yeah. So I mean, you're so what age when so you did your two year 2 year course, and so
Yeah, I was 20.
20 when you were coming out. So you were, yeah, you were.
Yeah.
that- That's like that's good going, And then, as you say, so you interned at this company. Then what'd you do?
Well, I finally did the graduation. So I interned while I was in school, and then I graduated, and I was engaged at the time. Got married. 3 weeks in, he got a girlfriend I didn't know about. 3 months in, he files for divorce. And 9 months later, we're divorced. And in the middle of all that, my parents decide to pick up and move to Florida, about 1,500 miles away. Or 700 miles, something like that. Lots of miles away from where we were living. And so they said, well, there's nothing holding you here now, so why don't you just come with us? And I was like, no, I don't want to go. And when I got divorced, I lost everything. I mean, I lost, the money we had, the cars, the house, like everything was just gone. And I had only what I basically brought with me, my car and my clothes and my like little possessions. Like that's all I had left. And I took all that with me. I moved back into my parents' house. I moved with them to Florida. And that time period in my life, I feel like it felt really like Alice in the Little House, like where Big Alice, where she's like got her arms poking out the windows and her legs are out the doors, and she's got her eyes peeking out the little top windows in the attic. And that's what I felt like. Like I had been little Alice in the big house, and I've been walking around, and then all of a sudden I was just like, my arms and legs were out the windows. And it was a learning experience. It was definitely something that taught me to adapt, because I was angry about the divorce. I didn't know what went wrong. No one in my family had ever really experienced divorce. My parents weren't divorced. None of my grandparents were divorced. I had an uncle that had already gotten divorced, but he was more like separate. It wasn't like my immediate, group, my little support group. And so I was like, how did this happen? Like, what did I do to make this happen? And the failure of it was more about me losing that dream of what I thought my life would be. Thought I was going to get married, work a little bit, have some kids, homeschool them, and then be, off on my merry way. If that was the case, this conversation wouldn't even be happening, because there would be no reason for me to have this conversation. I wouldn't even know you. I wouldn't know anything about this podcast or anything, probably about podcasting in general. And so what ended up happening was I did lose, in that time period, not only did I lose out of my kind of worldly possessions in a way, but I also lost self-esteem. I lost, the ability to see worth in myself and all that. And I had my family to support me. So thankfully I was the Big Alice in the Little House. And I did kind of like stop the swelling after a while. I did kind of go back down to normal size. And I eventually did move out. But in that time period, I had them there to say, to keep pouring back into me, like, no, you do have worth and all that stuff, because I had to keep hearing it every day. Otherwise I wouldn't have been able to move myself out of that. And I had people come along through my life that were from Florida, that were from different walks of life, that if I had stayed in Ohio, I wouldn't have seen, that helped me also move out of that and really find my worth again, and find that I could do things even though I felt like a failure in the things that I had already tried. Because when I lost when my marriage fell apart, I also lost my job. Like I had to quit. I couldn't mentally do the job that I was doing at the time. I was working as a software developer, which one I hated. And I didn't have the fire in my belly for that. I really didn't. I didn't like that job. And I did it because it was what I thought I was supposed to do, because that's what my degree was in. And I couldn't keep going with what was happening to me. So when I quit that and I came to Florida, I became a hostess because there's nothing else I could do. I was just like, hey, here's your table. Have a nice time, you know? And my mom said to me one day, she was like, I know you want to leave. And I'm like, yes. I told them, don't even like put my bed up. Just put the mattress on the floor. I'll be fine. I'll be out of here in 2 weeks. They're like, no, we're going to put your bed up. They keep teasing me about that to this day. But she said to me, you know, I know you want to leave, but you need to do something to help your situation. You can't, I couldn't get a job anywhere else. I couldn't get a job in my field. I was too overqualified or I was too underqualified. And I was having so much trouble. And of course, this is at the very tipping point of the recession in '07. And she said, you need to pick something else. You need to do something, like you need to just make a job because you can, and you can't do anything else. There's nothing else you have that's an option. So I said, fine. She's like, you pick 2 things you like, pick just 2 things, put them together and say, this is my job. And I said, well, I like old people and I like computers. And she said, all right, well, where those 2 things exist, you go get a job there. You go make a job. And I called every senior center in the area. And I said, do you have a computer lab? Do you have a computer teacher? Yes, no, yes, no. How much will you pay me? What is your rate? I will be there. I will work. And I started making $15 an hour teaching, I say old people in their 60s and 70s, how to use computers. And they were all desktops at the time. Laptops weren't really as big as they are now. And they would say, well, my computer doesn't work like that. And how my printer's not working. And how do I connect my phone? And, there's all these questions. And I said, oh, well, I'd have to show you. I'd have to see your computer. And they, well, I'm not going to bring it in. It's too big. And they've got walkers and everything. And I said, well, look, I'll come to your house and I'll charge you $35. And I just made up a number. I literally just pulled it out of thin air. And they were like, oh, perfect. Absolutely. Here's my address. Here's the date and time. See you there. And I thought, well, I'm 20, 21. I'm pretty much invincible anyway. But if they do try and do something, I can outrun them. I'm pretty young. So I was not afraid of anything at that point. And I just started going to people's houses every single day. I would teach classes and then I would go to people's homes and I would teach classes. And then I started teaching more classes in other senior centers. And then I started teaching community education at night. And so now we're 2 or 3 years in and I have this business. I don't think of it as a business because I don't really know any other business people. And then I start teaching in community education. I start teaching at the high school, at the college, and I start realizing there's other business people out there. And that's when my business really started for me in my mind that, oh my gosh, like I own a business, I own a company. I've got to figure out how to do this better. And that's when I kind of started into the whole business networking and marketing world.
You literally generated a business out of a need, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's what every business is born out of. I really truly believe that.
And I don't think there's an old person, I'll say old again, an old person in the country that doesn't have IT issues.
Yes. And I'm in Florida, which is the mecca of all old people. And there's so many of them here. And it was kind of like this perfect little situation. Like, okay, old people and computers, well, just where do those 2 things exist? Well, Florida and senior centers.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious just to go back really over the divorce. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not really, from a Christian point of view, it's something that's pretty hard to swallow, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I did try to prevent it. That was something that was interesting is in the laws the way they were. At that point, if someone files, you can't do anything about it. Like, it's going to happen. It's moving forward. And I did learn definitely a good lesson about what lawyers to pick. You want the meanest ones. I picked the nicest one, and that wasn't good because I was so vulnerable at the time. I was like, I just want somebody to take care of this. And, I was all emotional and everything. And so I wanted somebody who was nice to me. But that's not what you want. You want the meanest person you can find. And so those were kind of some hard things. And also, like you said, like my family had never experienced this really. It wasn't something that was part of our values or anything like that. But it was more like happening to me and there was nothing I could really do about it. We tried counseling. We tried to, do all that stuff. but it didn't work. It wasn't helping. He had already set his mind on what he was going to do, and he had already, done the paperwork and found the lawyer, and he had already like gone down that road. So even though we did counseling and stuff like that, it didn't do anything. And it was only like 1 or 2 sessions, and then he didn't show up for the rest and that kind of thing. So that time period was very interesting for me, because not only was I struggling with it, but then my family was struggling with it because we were so close, and because we are all like intertwined in each other's lives in that way, and because the homeschooling, like, you're with those people 24/7. That's your whole life, and so they were like, how did this happen? Why didn't we see this? And everybody was questioning themselves. Why didn't I see it? Why didn't I tell her? Why didn't, all these questions going around, not just for me, but for everybody. So everybody really did deal with it with me. And that was hard, but I think that it made all of us a little bit stronger in the end, looking back on it. That was 13 years ago. And we all learned something from it individually on a different level. But yeah, it was very difficult for everybody to kind of deal with at the time, especially my siblings. They were, some of my siblings were very young, and they were like, so Elizabeth was married and now she's not married. Like, they didn't understand, what happened exactly. So now they do. They're older. They've kind of gotten the history, but yeah, it was very interesting to deal with that with everybody at a different level.
What advice would you have for yourself looking back? Apart from the
Get
lawyer.
a meaner lawyer. Yeah. Get a meaner lawyer. I think, I honestly, I don't know. I don't think that I would even change anything about it, because there was so much that I got from that experience long term, definitely long term, not short term at all. And even in the short term, it gave me kind of permission to say, well, the life I had thought I had planned out isn't going to happen. So I might as well just, go on and do what I want to do. I gave me kind of this freedom to say, well, I'm not going to be a wife. I'm not going to be a mother. Well, right now anyway. And I'm just going to do the things I need to do then. I went to New York one year. Just one of my friends from here, from Florida, when I moved here, they were like, well, we're going to New York. We have a house. Da, da, da. They had all these things. And I was like, I'm going with you. One whole week in New York by myself, no one else. And it was just those things, to be able to do that with that freedom, without saying, well, my boyfriend might not like it, or, well, I might have to ask my husband, and all these things that I had thought were going to be there. None of that was there. And so I really felt like it gave me that freedom. So I really don't have any advice. I got a lot of good advice during that time. And one of the things was, and I talk about this when I talk to women who are divorced or going through a trauma, is that one of my colleagues, in one of the divorce care classes I went through after the fact, she said, if you're going through something and it's emotional and you feel this overwhelming like wave of emotion come over you, and you're thinking, oh, why didn't I see that? Or did that person really love me? And like just these really heavy emotions. She's like, if you can, if at all possible, you need to sit and let that emotion just engulf you. Just let it happen to you, and cry, scream, punch a pillow, throw things, like, make sure you're obviously safe about it, but let out that emotion however it needs to be. If you're driving in the car, pull over, scream, hit the steering wheel, beep the horn, whatever you need to do. Because if you don't let that emotion out as soon as it hits you, you're stuffing it. And you're pushing that down, and you're holding on to that, and you're saying, well, I'm in a public restaurant right now, I can't do that, even though, because those things hit you like anytime, any place, it doesn't matter. And she said, you have to let that emotion go through you and then come out of you. It has to come at you and come out of you, because if you don't, it's gonna come back later, and it's gonna come back stronger. And when she told me that, I was like, okay, like, I don't sure, whatever you say, lady. And when that thing happened to me again, because those things happen very frequently in the beginning, and I think that's with a lot of different traumas that happens. You have these like intense memories, intense emotions that come over you. And when the next time it happened, I was driving, and I was just like furious. I was crying. I didn't know what to do. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to pull over, and I'm just going to hit the steering wheel. I'm just going to, and I pulled over. I was in a parking lot, and I just sat there in an empty parking lot, screamed, hit the steering wheel, cried, yelled, said words I probably shouldn't have said. And it was just me, obviously. And I just let all of it out. And then I just sat there, and I was like, well, I guess I feel a little better. I don't really know what it did. And so then I just like went on with my day, you know, and just, okay, that was weird, but I did it. So great, it's done. And then the next time another emotion came like that, another memory, I was at my house and I was near my couch and there was like all these pillows. And I just started picking them up and launching them across the room. I was just like, shh. And like, I mean, I was hitting things were falling off the walls, and thankfully nothing broke. But I just went at it, and I just like, fine, I'm just gonna let it out. Just can't even hold it in anymore. And after I did it again, I thought, this isn't even helping. I don't even know why I did that. That was stupid. And it started happening again and again, but those things came less frequently. And that those emotions were less intense the next time I thought about the same memory or the same thing that happened or a similar memory. It just kind of gradually decreased, but each time it happened, if I felt like crying, I cried. If I felt like screaming, I screamed. If I felt like, you know, whatever it was, if I had the opportunity to do it and to let it out, I did it. And that was so not only cathartic, but also just mentally therapeutic, so that my brain wasn't holding on to all of that anger and all of that resentment and all of that, you know, sadness, whatever it was. I just let it out. And so that was like the best piece of advice anybody gave to me. And I took it, thankfully. And I feel like that actually sped up my kind of healing process, if you will, to actually move forward with my life and get over it in a way, because you never fully get over it, but to get over it enough so that I could actually be ready to meet the person that I married as my second husband, who I adore, and he's amazing. And we've been together for 10 years.
That's I mean, it's awesome, and I like, I love the anecdotes there, and I love the, I suppose, and you can tell now you have a completeness to it. Do you know what I mean? That
Yeah.
there's no, you can tell there's no restriction there, and in fact, but just by coincidence, there's a guy, Gabor Mate. I don't know if you heard of him, follow him, but there's somebody actually used an expression with me on another interview last night, and that was, everything that is wrong with me was a survival technique from my child. And now, whilst you weren't a child, I think it's so poignant there that actually, you know, when stuff happens, it doesn't just go away. It gets lodged in there somehow, and it will come back out somehow. And obviously, the bigger the bigger the thing that you've had to swallow, then, you know, depends how it's going to come back out. And I don't, kind of feels like as humans at the moment, we're not giving ourselves enough space for that. You know, not enough capacity to say, yeah, that's really not happening. And I don't know. I'm going to suggest that maybe it manifests in other forms, and whether it be addictions or depression or mental health or something else. Don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think that's true. And, you know, even though I kind of felt like I had moved past it to a point and I felt complete or whole after, you know, a year or two of dealing with everything and kind of getting to the point where I wasn't getting those memories, I wasn't getting those overwhelming emotions, and I could talk about it with people without bursting into tears, because that's usually what happened in the first couple of years. Um, and I got to that point and I thought, okay, well, I guess I'm ready for somebody else, right? Like, I guess I'm ready to move on with my life. So then eventually I did get remarried, and definitely those things came back. And those things came back almost as hard as they did when it was new. And it was when he would, my new husband, let's say he would say something in a certain way. And I would just be like, oh my gosh, it's happening again. I would freak out, because that would trigger me to remember something or to experience that again. And it wasn't anything like, he wasn't doing anything wrong. He would literally say like potato instead of potato. Like, I mean, it was just those kind of little things. It was just like, would send me into a tailspin. And that was like a second layer of dealing with it. And so I feel like what you're saying about it getting lodged in there and kind of like, you know, sticking with you, and like it never really is fully gone, I feel like that's true. And even though like we would deal with it at the time, and he would be really patient with me, and he would be like gracious and say, okay, well, I know you're not really thinking about me at this moment. You're not really mad at me, because I said potato instead of potato. But you know, he would really help me deal with it, and him being so patient in that helped me to get through that like second level, that second layer that was really stuck in there. That was I got through all the surface stuff on my own. You know, I got, you know, some therapy and some of that. I could get through that by myself. But I needed that other catalyst of someone else to be in that same position to go, there's still barnacles here. I see them. We're gonna get these off of this ship, you know. So yeah. So that I do agree that it does get stuck with you, but then I feel like if you can, you know, work through that second layer, that usually you can get past it enough to the point where it's still with you and it still reminds you and it still keeps you a little bit guarded, but not to the point where you may have been, you know, a year, 2 years, or previously when it was like really, really fresh and new.
Would that have been like the first sort of major disappointment in your life? Put it that way.
Yeah. Yeah. One time, when I was a kid though, my dad said he would take us to a swimming pool at a hotel, and he ended up just driving straight home, and we were really disappointed. That's probably the first one. And we still talk about that to this day. We told him at the time, we were so angry, me and my sister, we were like, "You always break your promises," and he was like, "No, I don't." We were in the car and we were crying. So I think that was probably my first major disappointment, but this was probably like officially, if you were talking about like adult, you know, major traumatic things, yeah, this would be the first thing. And I've had some not similar, but some other instances in my life since then that have been, you know, kind of I would say not annoying, but they're just not as bad as that. And I feel like if I've been through that, this can be gotten over. This can be worked out. This can be adjusted, overcome. And I really feel like that gave me a lot of the tenacity I really needed in business, because before that I had, you know, a passion to do things and I had a willingness to adapt and overcome. And that was a lot because I was with so many siblings and we just had to figure things out all the time. And things were constantly changing, so you had to constantly adapt. But I feel like that if I hadn't gone through the divorce, if I hadn't been through all of that craziness and all of that really, really deep depths of kind of going off the cliff and then having to climb back out of it, then I wouldn't have had the tenacity to get through the recession. I wouldn't have had the tenacity to move forward when things like COVID hit, or when I remember when me and my husband were married and it was during the recession, towards the last few years of it, we had like $20 in our bank account. Like, and we were both working in my business full time because he couldn't get another job. So we went, I mean, those kind of things, like you can just give up and be like, I'll go to McDonald's and work. Like, it doesn't even matter. But I didn't. I was like, no, this business is going to work. This business is going to feed us. This business is going to make money. And so if I hadn't been through the other part, I don't think I would have been able to get through some of the other things I've done in business, or even just overcome some of the things I've overcome in business.
It's amazing there, you know, as you say, that you do have to, you know, if you didn't have the strength of what you wanted to do, and knowing your mission and your vision and etc., that, as you say, at that point you'd be flip-flopping all over the place. You're going, well, I could do this or do that, or I don't know what I want, and sit there and have another cry, basically, you know. And you know, it's amazing how, you know, having that vision, the difference it makes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've experienced that in the last couple months. I mean, we've done some rearranging of what we've been doing in the last year. And then when COVID hit, it kind of toppled all of our dominoes with the business. And it didn't completely wipe us out, obviously, but now all the dominoes are all over the place and I got to go, you know, pick them and stack them back up. And when I was kind of doing my restacking, I was realizing that I had lost a little bit of my mission and vision over the last year. And in the last few months, I've kind of gone back to that. So even though I've been in business a long time, even though I'm seen and viewed as successful by a lot of people, even then you can still lose your way and lose that. But if you have that always as your goal, that I'm going to stay on track, I'm going to be, you know, even just like with eating healthy, you can always fall off the wagon and then you go, okay, no, that's my goal. That's what I want. That's what I'm here for. So got to start back. I got to get back into it. So I feel like even though I've been successful in my career, it's definitely a struggle to stay on that path, because you can get, you know, shiny object syndrome and kind of get, oh, squirrel, you know.
Yeah, listen, when there's a squirrel, there's a squirrel. Like, you can't help but watch it.
That's right.
So you know, websites and hardware and old people, and you know, did what happened? Where did you move on from there?
Well, I had the computer repair business for 10 years, and I had it when I met my husband, and I had already started just a little bit branching out into the business world when I met him in 2010. And we, when I met him, he was just working at CVS. He wasn't like, you know, he was a pharmacy technician and he was just doing a little, you know, retail job. And he really wanted to do something different. He wanted to do something else. And so at the time, I'd also gotten a part-time job because my business did not pay enough of my bills. It was going well, but it wasn't there yet, like full-time person yet. So I got a job at a company as a receptionist. And then when we got married, I was like, oh, you should work with me in my company that, you know, I work for. We could work together in the same building and then we could like drive to work together. And I thought that was fascinating. I thought that would be so great. First year of marriage, not to mention that's the hardest year of all, like just throw in working together on top of that. So you're really together 24/7. And so he did. He quit his job where he was and he came to work with the company that I was in. And we worked in different departments, but we were together most of the day. And then I got to the point where I was doing like 3 days a week there because my business was going so well. And then I was doing 2 days a week and my business was going better. And then they were like, okay, Elizabeth, you have to pick. You cannot do this for 2 days a week. We need someone here every day. So I said, fine, I'll quit. And my business was basically making as much money as I made and my husband made in our jobs at this company. I was making in my business separately for like I was working at 3 or 4 days a week. So I said, you know what? I think it's time for me to go full time. I will go full time. And I did that for a year, or almost a year. And the job just getting worse and worse for him. And it was getting more and more difficult with the people that were there and just like infighting and all these it was an awful environment. So after about a year, I was like, you know what? I'm basically making your salary that you bring home from this crazy job you don't like twice. Like I'm bringing home double that in my business. So why couldn't you just come home and work with me? And he was like, are you sure? I was like, no, I'm positive we can do this. So he quit his job and he came to work with me and I trained him how to do the computer stuff. He started doing all the house calls, all the trainings, all the computer repair or the computer like teaching old people classes. They loved him, by the way. They probably loved him more than me. And then I saw the opportunity to go back to what I loved. I was working with more business people at this point. I was doing so much business networking. And I was doing networking 3 times a day. I did that for an entire year. And I needed time for that. I couldn't be doing all these small in-home computer jobs and still do all that stuff. So I let him do that part. I built the website business portion because I'd done all this marketing for myself for this little company that I built, that now I knew I could do this for myself. So if it works for me, I can replicate it for other people. And that's what I started to grow, was this marketing business. And so then I started taking over networking groups and I was running 13 groups a month. And I mean, I was running a networking company called Network and Jacks, and we had a whole calendar and we had annual Christmas parties that had like 200 people at them. And we were like doing everything together, and we were newly married, and we were running like 3 companies total. And then after about 10 years of you know, that 10th year coming by, you know, this is probably like 2016. So we'd been working together for a while. And he said, I kind of want to do my own thing now. I want to do something else. And I was like, okay. I was like, well, I don't want the computer company anymore because I don't even do that. Like, I had totally given it to him completely. So we sold that company and he went off into construction, which he loves. He's a project manager. And I just kept doing my marketing thing because that was the part that I loved. And even though when I started, I loved the computer repair thing, that was like so fascinating to me. It changed over time and I was able to pivot and grow into something else that I loved even more. And it kind of took me back to my roots of selling and marketing and giving people something they need rather than what they want. And also bringing back in my HTML skills and my web design skills that I had learned in college. And so it's kind of like this culmination of the roundabout way of getting there. That's the way Elizabeth took. And finally she ended up where she was supposed to be and talking about marketing. And then yeah, I mean, it just made so much sense. And so he's been doing that for about 3 or 4 years, and I've been doing the marketing thing. And about a year into that, everything was going great, and I just was stressed. I was always stressed, like 24/7 stressed. And I was like, why? I'm doing what I love. I'm setting my own hours. I don't know what's going on. Why am I feeling this really bad? I don't know. Just every time I would get a client, it was just so stressful. And what I was doing was 30-day websites. I was doing, come to me. First week, we're going to do your brand. Second week, you're going to get me all your content. Third week, I'm going to build your site. And fourth week, we're going to tweak it. 30 days. No one would do it. I would get all these people signed up, all paid. And then what would happen is for 30 days, I would contact them. I would call them. I would say, can I come by? Can we sit down and have a chat? And I was just like hounding them essentially because nobody would get me any information. Nobody had time for me. And on day 29 of 30, I would get 10 phone calls, 25 emails, and they would say, here's all my stuff because I know our last day is tomorrow. And I was like, I've got 2 more clients starting tomorrow. I can't be sitting here with all of your stuff sitting in my inbox looking at me. So I would build their site in one day out of obligation to the client. So I would stress myself out for 29 days, and then I would build the site in one day, and then I would move on to stress myself out for another 29 days with 2 more clients. And I could only take on 2 clients at a time because I knew that the week plan I had, I could only work with 2 people at one time and all this stuff. And I looked at that process and I was like, this is not helpful. This is not helpful for me or them or anybody. Nothing is getting done. Everything is rushed. Everything is stressful. And so literally it was like a May and I had just signed 2 new clients this normal way. And I said, the next person that comes to my website, I went on my website, I changed everything. And I said, the next person that asks me about a website, I am only building their site in one day. They have to sit with me for 8 hours in front of me across the desk. They have to bring their computer. They have to write everything I tell them to write. They have to answer all the questions I ask them. And they have to sit with me for 8 hours and their website will be done. I knew I could do it in 8 hours. I knew that. I already proved that multiple times. And lo and behold, the next day, after I change everything, and I put it on my website, I also cut my price in half because I'm not spending 30 days dealing with you. I'm only spending 1 day dealing with you. And now I can work 30 days out of the month instead of, 1 or 2. So I cut my price in half and somebody comes to me and they said, hey, I need a website. Oh, I need a brand too. And do you do social media? And I said, yes, absolutely we do. And I said, well, it's 1 day for the website. And they're just like, well, what about the branding? Can we do that on the same day? And I said, actually, no, that's a separate day. And in my mind, I'm going, I am going to make this a separate day. I'm going to put all the things I can think of in there and make it a separate day. And then they said, what about social media? I said, oh, we can do like 6 to 12 months of posts in 1 day. And they're like, really? And I was like, absolutely. And I'm thinking in my mind, okay, I've got to come up with a plan. How do we do this? And I'd already been doing that for myself. So I knew I could just adapt my formula and like make it work. And they said, all right, well, how much is it? And in that moment, I made $4,500 for 3 days. Instead of spending 30 days and making $3,500 and trying to convince someone that it was worth it to work with me for 30 days and pay $3,500 and what they were going to get out of it, etc. I did this with this person for 3 days. We worked together consecutively. I took them to lunch. That was our only break. We sat in chairs for 3 days straight, 24 hours together, and they were floored. They were like, I can't believe we did this in 3 days. This is amazing. And from there, that is what became Absolute Marketing. And now it's the 5-day process that I mentioned at the beginning of the episode.
That is awesome. And I love the fact that it's evolved, and as any business idea does, comes through frustration, comes through breakdown, lethargy, financial ruin, you name it. You pick any of your vices or anything that's big enough to take you down, and yet that's the very thing that's kind of backed you into a corner, but actually that was the place you were supposed to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's been a very interesting ride. And I, like you mentioned before, you asked me like what I would say or advice I would give. And it's kind of like it's asking if you would change something, what would it be? No, nothing really.
It's kind of on like I've said to a number of people, are you where you're supposed to be, do you think?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. This is, and like I said before, I had kind of strayed for another idea earlier this year, and it kind of took me over in, left field a little bit. And now I've come back over the last few months, and it's made so much of a difference to be, like to be back on track really. But when I made the decision to go to the one day and made that decision, and I just changed the website and I changed the name and I just, okay, that's it. Turning it off and turning it on something else. That was a huge relief to me. And it was like, this is what it's supposed to be. Obviously I was a little nervous in the beginning because I was like, well, is this going to work? Are people going to want this? But I just made the decision and I did it. I didn't think about it too hard. I didn't try and reanalyze it. I didn't try and workshop it. I didn't try and look for people and say, oh, let's do a survey and find out. No, I knew what was needed, but for people, I knew what they needed, not what they wanted, but what they needed. And I just said, this is what I'm giving you, and this is it. That's the only thing I'm giving you. And when you focus in on that one thing so closely, and that's all you tell people that you do, that's when those ideas take off. And so when I stick with my one thing that I've developed, my one thing that I've created, that's when I know I'm on the right path. And when I stray from it, I might think it's a good idea at the time, but I always come back. And it's always absolute marketing, always. And I think that's really, it shows how powerful that it is and how magnetic it is for me to even keep coming back to it, even if I have other good ideas, or I think they're good ideas. They're really not.
It is so true. Well, one that, as you say, it takes a decision, and it can happen in the blink of an eye. Just enough's enough. But also, then the strength. Like there's a book called Essentialism, and they more or less saying, listen, you can either go in 10 different directions and divide your energy in 10 ways, or you can go one direction, one way, and use 100% of your energy on it, which is going to be more powerful. And it's great to see that, and it's great to hear that's what it is. And it's obviously something you're good at. And it's true, I think, with a lot of businesses don't have the time and they work to deadlines, funnily enough. And if the deadline's 30 days or the deadline's 24 hours or 8 hours or whatever it is, then people will either go, yeah, I can do that, and they'll get a buzz, or they'll go, no, I won't, and you're not for me. But it's whatever works, right?
Yeah. And I really do make it known to people that I do go off of Parkinson's law. And I talked about this in my 15-minute calls when I talk to people, just to introduce them to the whole concept. And Parkinson's law essentially says that if you give a task a certain amount of time, it will always take that amount of time. So if you say, oh yeah, I'm going to do the dishes today, it's going to be like 9 p.m., 10 p.m. You're going to be like, oh yeah, I was going to do the dishes. It's not going to be like, I'm going to do the dishes today. Oh, at 8 a.m., I'm going to get up and do the dishes, So if you tell people 30 days for a website, it's going to take them, like you said, 30 days to the end of that deadline. But if we say, let's do this in 8 hours, I actually had someone say to me the other day, that's not possible. That can't happen. I said, well, I do it all the time, so I don't know, I must be living in a fantasy land or something, because it happens all the time. And that's that idea of Parkinson's law, that if you're like, we're going to focus, we're going to sit here, and like you said, giving that 100% of energy to that one thing in one direction. And that's what a lot of people don't do. They multitask. They'll sit down and they'll go, oh, my email, oh, I gotta do this podcast thing, oh, I gotta type this person, oh, I gotta do this chat, oh, I've gotta look at this webinar, oh, I'm gonna be on this call. And they're doing 10 different things at once, and I'm so guilty of this. And then when we actually get them to sit down, and I sit down with them across the desk, and I'm like, okay, we've got 8 hours, we're gonna build a site. Let's start with the about page. Do you have a bio? Do you have a headshot? Do you have and we're going through the pieces. Their brain goes, oh my gosh, I only have to think about one thing today? Just one? Oh, this is amazing. I can do this. And it hyperdrives and gives them so much mental energy and mental clarity, and just lets them focus. And it's really incredible to see that, because a lot of times they don't give themselves that room, like we talked about earlier, like giving yourself that time to experience emotion, or let emotion out, or even just to focus, because we're so connected to this. and we don't, it's constant, it's constantly buzzing, ringing, dinging, telling us things, telling us where to go, where to be. And so I feel like if we can cut that off sometimes and just say, you have one task, this is your task, do that one thing. And sometimes for me, it is honestly, I have to do that and say, Elizabeth, your task today is relax.
How do you get into flow
With the clients,
with yourself, with clients, whatever?
oh, yeah, it really does have to do with shutting everything else off. It really does. And I believe in that very strongly. And I don't do it enough, honestly. I'm very bad at that myself. But when I know that I have something to do, when it comes down to that deadline, when I know that things are, down to the wire, or I have something that does really need to be focused on. Right now I have a half finished ebook that has to be done by Monday. So Sunday night, that's what I'm doing. And like I said, I'm guilty of it too. But I know that on Sunday night, I'm going to come into the office in here right now, and I'm going to sit down. And I'm going to say, for the next 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever it is, I'm going to work on this ebook and finish it. And it's going to get finished. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's going to be finished. But really just sitting and shutting everything off is so difficult to do, because we feel like we're needed, everywhere. Like, oh, well, this person might call me, or that person might text me, or whatever. And if we do get something like that, we immediately have to deal with it and answer it and, figure out what's happening with it. But if we're able to shut that off and really give ourselves an hour or two and block it out, then that's how I have to get into a flow, because otherwise I'm a horrible, horrible, addicted multitasker.
Listen, I think it's the current world too. I mean, as you know from marketing, I mean, people are vying for our attention, and it's pinging and dinging, and it's whatever way, which way it works. It's email's not dead, social media is not dead, WhatsApp's not dead,
Yeah.
Facebook's not dead. They're all alive in different shapes and forms, and ironically, that's your job to distract, or to grab attention, right?
It is true. And so it is a kind of a neat juxtaposition to try and figure out, how do we balance me telling people, oh no, you need to shut that thing off, and oh, by the way, we're writing 12 months of social media today.
Absolutely. So do you have a brand or a style? I mean, how do you normally work to? I suppose you must have a fairly set formula you work to, right?
Yeah, so when I market myself, I'm Elizabeth Pampalone, and I do absolute marketing. So that's kind of my two main pieces. And we also have a nonprofit arm that works with nonprofits. It's a for-profit business, but it works with nonprofits, and it's called Beyond the Cause. But as far as doing work with clients, the formulas I use are the same ones that I use when I create something for myself. So when I created Beyond the Cause, when I created, Absolute Marketing, I go through the same questions, a certain set of questions that really dive deep into, like I mentioned, those 3 questions in the initial part of the podcast. Who are you? Why are you doing this? What are you doing? And who is it for? Who you're sharing it with? And if we can answer those 3 questions and go a little deeper with maybe some offshoot questions that will come subsequently from those answers, then that's really the essence of the brand. And then we can go forward from there and say what colors are going to be the most appealing, what fonts are going to be the most appealing, etc. And then with the website, it's just a matter of creating the sitemap and actually completing the pages, because that's the hardest part, is writing the stuff and forcing the client to write the stuff. And I walk them through that, holding their hand the whole way. And then the social media is just a matter of making a formula, creating a schedule, and filling it in all the way to the January through December. And the same thing with blogging, creating a schedule, writing some good titles, filling it in. And that's what the whole day is about, is filling it in. And sometimes it requires conversation and deep introspection, and people having these brainstorming moments, between us, back and forth. But a lot of it is just, let's create a schedule and fill it in to the finality, like the total, not leaving it, okay, well, we got 9 months in, that's good enough. No, like 12 months done. We have to go to the end. And if that means I'm there with the client from 8 in the morning until 8 at night, that's what we have to do sometimes. I spent the other day, I was with a client. We did her website, and we did a couple of other things because she really needed help, and I wanted to give her some extra support. I was with her from about 7:30 in the morning until about 9 o'clock at night. It wasn't a typical 8-hour day for me. It wasn't a typical website in a day, but it was what I knew I needed to do for that client. And it made sense. And some clients will leave at like 4 p.m. or 3 p.m. We're like, we're done. We got this. It's already like, it's in the can. Yeah. They like rocked it. And that's great. Like they're done early. That they makes them feel accomplished. They feel like they did something they've never done before, and they're happy with it. And so that's the main thing. Like as long as they're happy with it and they are walking away saying, I feel different now. I feel better. I feel more organized, whatever that is for them. I had one client come in and she was a mom and pop company, and they do medication management for people. And she was, just doing the thing with her husband. It was just her and him, and they were just, had been like 7 years in their business. And we redid their brand, we redid their website, did their marketing. And she said, you know what I've always wanted to do? I've always wanted to go to a hospital and tell them how we could actually help them when patients come out of the hospital, how we can utilize our service for this. And I was like, well, why don't you do that? And she's like, well, it's just me and my husband. And, I don't really have a lot of, something to show like, hey, we're a company, etc. And after we did her brand, she looked at me and she was crying and she said, I feel like I own a company now. And it was just the brand and the website. It wasn't anything like super fancy. It wasn't like we went off in a weird direction or anything. She was like, I own a company. And it's kind of like with me when I was, doing my business in the beginning, I was just helping people with their computers and making money, and then when I started working with small businesses, I was like, oh my gosh, I have a company. And so, letting people walk away with those kind of feelings, that's the biggest thing for me.
It's amazing. I think in the word you used earlier was empowerment. It is that, as you say, whether it just gives them permission, whether it just solidifies it in their mind, and the perfect thing is, again, it's a member of staff, if you think of it that way, that works 24/7, 365. It represents them exactly how you want represented. It's a beautiful thing in websites, and it's amazing how a small company can look big too. Sorry.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. And I think that, if I can help in that small way to help somebody see themselves differently and have that, I guess, self-esteem and that worth shown, then it's absolutely worth it for me. And that's actually the title of my memoir coming up. It's going to be called Absolutely Worth It, because I feel like that's what this whole journey has been for me, is absolutely worth it.
Where does the Absolute brand come from?
When I created Absolute Marketing, I went through my own branding process, and part of that process is a thesaurus search. And we take words that mean something to us, whether personally or whether it means something to the business, and then we do a thesaurus search. And once we do that search, we're able to find other words that mean the same thing, obviously, but are not the same words that everybody's using. Like we talked about earlier, pivot. We want to find a different word for that. So I did some different word searches, and I really was trying to find something that meant this is the last marketing you'll ever need. That was really what I went into it with. And I wanted these 5 days to be the last marketing you'll ever need. You just need to know how to do these 5 things, and that's it. It's essential, but essential marketing was kind of already, out there. It's, the only marketing you'll ever need, that's already out there. And so when I came to the word absolute, I was like, this is it. It's the absolute. It's just like with math, it's the final. It doesn't change. It's always the same. It's not going anywhere. It's not relative. It's absolute. It's sticking. It's staying. And that's what we want our business owners to be. We want them to feel like they are absolutely there. It's just finished, final, done. And so that's why I came up with Absolute Marketing, and now I use it in my other business ventures, which would be Absolute Accountability, which is our coaching program, and then also Absolutely Worth It, which will be the memoir.
I love your drive, and as you say, even doing your memoirs and things like that. It's great. I mean, do you know where you're going to? Do you have a flavor of the future and what you want to achieve?
Well, my husband and I want to have kids at some point, so that's a fun in the works project. And as far as my business, I've really gotten to this point by not planning. And because I planned my life out so much, And then I went through the divorce, and just this one little thing spiraled my little race car out of the way in the craziness. And I like hit the wall, and all these different analogies I can think of. When that happened, it taught me that planning is good, being prepared is good, but to plan so far and be so focused on like one singular goal, it's not good for me, because I can't achieve that. I might not achieve it. And then for me, that's really disappointing to me. So what I've decided was that, people ask me what my 5-year plan is, my 10-year plan is. I don't have those. I actually say that right now we're working on, like I said, we want to have kids at some point. And also I am working on speaking on stages more, getting paid to speak. I get paid to speak now, but I want to do more of that. I love that. I love this. I'd like to get paid to do it, so I feel like I want to do more of that. And so I'm taking steps to actually do that. I've hired an agent, doing things like that, right? Putting myself out there more, marketing myself as a speaker, etc. And that's a goal of mine. And hopefully within the next 6 months to a year, that will happen. And I'll be where I want to be with that. So I always have these like goals, and I don't know how long they're going to take me to get there, but I do have them in front of me, and I'm always doing something every day, every few days, to make that goal happen. So a few weeks ago, I hired the speaking coach. On Monday, we had our first meeting. And in a week or so, we're going to talk again, and she's going to tell me what opportunities she's found for me. So our speaking agent, not coach. But so that kind of thing, like I'm always like keeping that on my radar, that's a goal of mine, to be on more stages and get paid more for that. And then the other piece is I'm working on setting up our coaching program, which is Absolute Accountability, and also our membership. And those are in the works right now. And I don't know how long it's going to take me to get them done. My goal is by the end of the month of August. But it's like these smaller, achievable, attainable goals. And then overall, I have life goals that I'd like to go to Europe someday, but gosh darn, COVID is putting a dent in that. And those kind of things are always there. But I don't have to put a timeline and say, well, in the next 10 years, I'm going to be $1 million company and I'm going to sell, those kind of things. So I try to just give myself the grace and the time and say, I'd like to do this. And how much do I want to do it? Like with the speaking thing, I really want that. I really want to do that. That is a really high goal for me right now. The stuff with my website and my membership and all that, I really want to do that too. Those are on my radar. So every day I take steps towards those. And if it comes to maybe something else pops up and I say, okay, well, I want to go to Europe. Well, I feel like that's further down the road. Obviously, I can't really do anything about it right now, but I'm saving towards that, making sure that my trip is going to be once in a lifetime kind of thing. And I can make little steps towards that, but I can't make, big steps towards that right now. So, that's why I kind of push that out a little bit and not worry so much about it. But I know eventually it will happen. It's just not happening right now. So that's kind of how I look at my next 10 years, but I don't really have any like, in the next 10 years, I'm going to be $1 million company and things like that.
That's great. And even, well, one, you've obviously got the passion and the drive to push that forward, and, but it is interesting, it's almost like a lot of people, it's sort of, things take as long as you give them, and it's like, I know for me, it's similar. And just again, when you've so many opportunities on the table and so much to do, that actually it's like, right, who's shouting loudest? Right, let's do you. let's get that sorted out, But when you don't know any better, that you actually have a system that continues to run. I mean, I call it a sausage machine, call it a donut machine, call it whatever you want, but actually, it is a bit like a website that actually, okay, it takes a flurry of energy to get it there, but then the reward is that continues to operate now, and I sort of quip slightly that, is a website ever finished? Well, as long as you got someone good like yourself to come in, as you say, nail them to the floor and go, you're not moving until this is done. But you continue that process, then that's going to be a success, as opposed to, I mean, how many people do you speak to and going, how's your website? Yeah, it's good, but we really need to update it. I really need to change it. I really need to do X, Y, or Z. And you're like, yeah, is that ever going to happen? And how long have you been saying we need to?
Yeah, I run into that a lot. I actually run into a lot of people also who are like, don't, this is my card, but don't look at my website. Or let me scratch that off. That doesn't exist anymore. And that bothers me a little bit, because they could be utilizing that tool so much every day. I mean, I use my website constantly. Even to book calls. I had 3 people book calls today that I hadn't spoken to. I don't know who they are. They heard about me. We had some kind of interaction at some point, but they booked calls and I didn't have to do anything. But they went to my website, they found me, they said, okay, I want to talk to her. Done. On the calendar. I'll talk to them when their date comes up and their number comes up. But that's something that if I wasn't getting those leads in, that's huge for me to get those leads in without me having to do anything. Now, like you said, there was initial activity to get all that like up and running, but I use that thing every day. And it's kind of like your car. Like if you don't put the maintenance into your car, or you don't buy a good one initially, then you're going to have issues. Car's going to be breaking down. You're going to get flat tires. There'll be these issues that you could have prevented in some cases if you had bought a good car, spent a little bit of time initially finding the right one or getting the, reports and all that stuff. And if you're going to use it every day, you want it to be solid, you want it to be good, and you want it to do something for you. You don't want to have to always be taking care of it, like babying it and babysitting it.
It's one of those things, I suppose, when you're in the industry and you see it day in, day out, and you're like, yeah, it's easy, you just need to do X, Y, and Z. It's like, why haven't you done that? And you're like, well, you don't know what you don't know. And plus, when it's something you do, as you say, you do it with your eyes shut. What is the most useful thing that businesses can do, sort of, even just to market themselves and push themselves out there?
Well, I definitely think hiring a professional is actually one of the best things you can do. And I know that sounds like, okay, now you're just telling me to spend money, And what I would say to that is there's actually a solution to this problem. A lot of people say, well, I don't have money to market. What can I do that's free? Well, you can get your ducks in order. You can get your ducks in a row. So you can fix your branding so that it's solid and it speaks to the people you want it to speak to. You can fix your website so that it does something for you. When people go there, they want to do something. They don't want to just read a bunch of junk. They want to do something. So what should they do? You tell them what to do on the website and then they can do it. For me, it's like book a call. And then you want your social media to be consistent. So if you aren't going to do them a year in one day, you've got to sit there every day and you got to post something every day. Otherwise, it's not going to be worth it to even post it all. Your blog, if you have a website, you need to put a blog on it so that you can get SEO to come to you from Google. This is the best way. The SEO experts are going to tell you otherwise, but they're gurus. I don't believe them. I've been doing this too long to know the difference. And if you have a blog and you're talking about real things that real people want to search for, then you're going to get good traction. And then with email marketing, if you are in someone's inbox once, twice a month at a minimum, then you're going to get good traction and people are going to remember you and come back to you. My client that just signed with us today, I had spoken with him 2 years ago, but he still gets my emails and he called me. So, and now we're working together. So that is something that is very important. The last piece is if you're like, okay, I don't know how to do any of that. I'm not techie. I just need to hire somebody, but I have no money. I read a book 2 years ago called Profit First. Mike Michalowicz is the author. I recommend that every single person who says, I don't have the money or I'm too broke, they go to that book, they read it, and within 3 months, they will have whatever money they want to do almost anything they want in their business or in their personal life. It is a miracle machine. I don't know how, I know how it works because I do it all the time, but it's just amazing how many people don't know about it and like how I went 10 years in my business without doing this type of account, like a cash flow system. And once I started doing it, it just saved my business because I don't think I would be here through COVID if I hadn't read this book 2 years ago. So what I tell people now is when they say, I want to work with you, Elizabeth, but I have no money. I hand them the book. It's my $11 investment in their business. And I say, read this book, come back in 3 months. And the surprising fact is most of them do.
I love that. It's just, it's simple that actually people can help themselves, but you're building up a relationship of knowing, liking, and trusting, right? That,
yeah.
As you say, it is that consistent, because we all do. Stuff gets in the way, whether it's paradigms, excuses, life, money, whatever. And maybe it's right, maybe it's not, who knows? But as you say, from, as you found out, I suppose, from your 30-day program, is that if you were to follow them manually over 2 years, well, you simply wouldn't. You're going, oh my God, it's them, it's not me, or it's me, it's them. And, you know, and you would just quit and you'd almost feel bad. Where if it's preset to go, it's like, yeah, there's an unsubscribe button at the bottom, and if it doesn't suit, doesn't suit, you know, because you
Exactly.
never know who's watching, right?
Exactly. That's so true. There's so many lurkers out there. I'm one of them. I lurk on a lot of lists. And there'll be people that don't even open my emails. And they'll come to me at a meeting and they'll say, "Oh yeah, I saw this email you sent out the other day." And I'm thinking, I said, "Oh, what did you think?" And they'll go, "Oh, I didn't get a chance to open it, but that subject line looked really intriguing. Tell me about that." And so now we're having this conversation just because I got an email out there that they never even opened.
That's mad. That is mad. What what's your mantra? What's your sort of mission
I've had a
statement?
couple.
Hmm.
Um, I had one the other day that I really liked, and I can't remember it, of course. It's not really much of a mantra if I can't remember it, huh?
It'll come back. This happens because usually when you put someone on the spot, they just go, ah, brain freeze.
Well, my main thing though is not giving up. I
Hmm.
mean, I you can't give up, and I think there are times when you have to look at something realistically and say, okay, no, this is done. Like this is not something that can move forward. Um, but I think that most of the time that's not the case. Most of the time it's never give up. Never give up, never surrender, never give in. The whole Winston Churchill thing, he's one of my favorites. Um and and I think like perseverance is just kind of the thing I've just kept with me the whole time. And that's, you must go on, you must survive. And I think those kind of, you know, how those tones are what I really move to. And there's not really any one word or phrase that I really stick to, but it's just that idea that, you have to keep moving forward and you have to keep going. And it might be moving forward, by taking two steps backwards, or taking two steps to the side. That's still moving. You're still going a direction. Just depends on which direction you're facing. And so, I feel like any kind of movement in that way is going to be helpful, even if it is a backward step, because that's going to show you something you didn't see before, show you a side of things or an angle of things you weren't prepared to see before. And now you are prepared to see that. So I think you just have to keep moving and persevere.
Makes sense. Guilty pleasure.
Huh. You should have asked me these questions before. I was kidding.
Okay.
um, I don't know really. I like to binge watch things, and I think the thing I do binge watch the most is The Office. I could watch that show a million times. I really could.
It's yeah, it's a very distinct piece of comedy because I mean, I've forgotten the guy's name, Carol,
Yes, yes.
whatever his name. Yeah,
Steve Carell.
Steve Carell. There you go. Yeah, so it's just the dryness of it, I think. Or what appeals to you about it?
I really during that time when it was on TV initially, like when I first saw it, it was a time when I was looking for, Mr. Right at the time. And so then the storyline, there's a guy and a girl and there's all this back and forth, will they, won't they stuff. And then eventually they get together and it's like, oh, it's so good. And so the following their story and they're getting married and they're having kids and me kind of being along those same lines similarly with them, and then towards the end seeing their marriage have trouble and how they fixed it. And obviously it's comedy and it's story, but just being in that same space and kind of having that affinity with them as they went along. So that's what really appeals to me. And I just, the comedy is so, I feel so timeless for me, because it's not only my coming of age, my story of the culture that I know and the pop culture stuff references that I understand, but also it has this kind of apoliticalness to it where you can watch it any time of any time period and it'll still be funny because it's referencing popular culture, but it's not diving into it so deep where you're like, oh, they're definitely trying to make a point. It's just meant to be funny, and that's what I really like about it.
I love that. So tell me book recommendations. You've obviously given us one there, Profit First. Any other books you would recommend for the listeners?
Anything really by Mike Michalowicz is a winner for me. He has written several books about entrepreneurship that they just really hit home, and Profit First being my favorite. And then also I read a lot of Seth Godin because he's in marketing. He's probably one of the greatest marketers of our time, and he's done a lot of research on the psychology of marketing and a lot of just a lot of good information on that. And I use psychology all the time in my marketing. And as we've talked about today, I feel like this whole podcast is about psychology. But yeah, I do use that a lot. And I think he has some of the greatest insights into marketing that I've ever read.
Wow, love it. Yeah, it makes so much sense. And a bit of a weird question, but well, it isn't, but do you like yourself and do you love yourself?
Yes. And yes, I can say that without hesitation for sure.
That's great. And you can actually really feel it in your energy. You know, you're just there, and I must say that that really shines through, which is amazing. You know, it's a credit to you, and yeah, that's it's
Well,
great.
thank you. It took me a while to get here. Obviously, if you had met me, 12 or 13 or 13 or 14 years ago, probably wouldn't have been the same. But that's what experience does to you. It kind of, I feel like, smooths off the rough edges in a way. And
Hmm.
some of my rough edges where I was a little too timid and too meek. And even though I was outgoing and I loved people, I didn't feel like I could be as, loud and tell people things I wanted to tell them, and my voice would be heard and my opinions were important. I was just a girl, and I was just, I did programming. Okay, whatever. I'm just a person. But I feel like that after going through all the things that I went through, I really found that I had a voice, and, finding that worth, and, seeing that, my opinions were important and that people could be helped from what I had to say and helped from the experiences that I've had. And that really is what allows me to now talk about it and share it so freely.
Well, I mean, like a diamond, you know, it takes time and pressure to make a diamond, and you know that's what it is. You've been on a journey, and you've put yourself through the mill, and you are where you are now. So it's awesome. So tell us, I mean, you kind of hit on before, but how can people reach out to you? How can they follow you? How can they, get in touch with you? Really?
Well, I would love that. I love meeting new people. I'm on LinkedIn. Obviously, it's one of my favorite platforms. I'm a B2B girl. And you can find me at elizabethpampalone.com. And you can also search Elizabeth Pampalone on Google. And they were kind enough to give me a whole first page all to myself. So
I was going to say, is there many of your in your namesake?
no, actually, it's all things about me personally. So if
Yeah,
you look up my name, I've got enough content out there that Google gave me a whole first page. It's all me.
that's kind. That's kind. Elizabeth, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. Thank you for sharing your journey, and I wish you the best for the future.
Thank you so much. And if you ever want to have me on again, I'm happy to talk. You know that.
Love it. Thank you.